So, welcome to this discussion of the book True Light, Ordinary People on the Extraordinary Spiritual Path of Sukyo Mahikari. Published in 2021 by the Light on Light Press and by author Dr. Leena Banerjee Brown, with contributions by Dr. Roger L. Beck, a foreword by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, an afterword by Dr. Robert Atkinson, and spotlight commentaries from some 20 other adepts and experts. You can find out more about the book directly at all the online booksellers and at lightonlight.us and sacredstoriespublishing.com. I'm Dr. Kurt Johnson, the director at Light on Light, and I'm so pleased to be here on this special occasion to discuss the book with Dr. Brown, Dr. Beck, and so many of the contributors and commentators to this amazing book. I think we have about a half a dozen of these persons with us on this broadcast. We hope this short discussion will help our audience learn more about true light and invite each of them to enjoy the inspiring wealth of resources and wisdom in its pages, and let others know about this important book as well. So to begin, for those who don't know about the Sukyo Mahikari tradition, Sukyo Mahikari, originating in Japan in the mid-20th century, has inspired millions in more than 100 countries. Sukyo means universal law, Ma means truth, and Hikari means light. So the full name means the practice of the universal law of true light. Sukyo Mahikari teaches holistic concepts and universal principles, born of a vision that the world is entering a new era, requiring an engaged spiritual lifestyle that can fully embody our personal and collective capacities for creating a better world. Sukyo Mahikari encourages people to embody loving and compassionate principles in their daily life, practicing virtues such as altruistic love, gratitude, humility, and selfless service. It visions that only by holistic life principles and an ecological and egalitarian view of people and planet can humanity both survive and thrive. Accordingly, it is a global leader and innovator across multiple areas of holistic vision and action. From fundamental respect for nature and the natural environment, it promotes practices and products from ecological and organic agriculture and utilization of sustainable, renewable, and regenerative resources. So we're going to begin by talking directly with both the author, Dr. Leena Banerjee Brown, and the contributing author, Dr. Roger L. Beck. So Drs. Brown and Dr. Beck, let's go over to you now.
Thank you, Kurt. And welcome to everybody. It's wonderful to have you here with us today. True Light, as you know, is a book of stories, a book of stories of spiritual experiences and development, mine as well as those of several others in several countries. And we share the practice of True Light or Sukyo Mahikari. Due to the nature of this work, the light and the wisdom in True Light comes as much to me as the author, as to all contributors, as it will to all readers. And this is one of the marvels of any true spiritual practice, that it is living. And it helps, it serves to unite and elevate the vibrations in spirit, mind, body, to bring it closer to God or the universe or the essence and the essence in each and all. It is for this reason that the efforts that we make in practicing any true spiritual path in daily life brings great hope to all of us at this time in human history when cooperative evolutionary transformation is the clarion call for a peaceful future. So I invite you to listen to a couple of stories that I want to read to you today from True Light, to focus on the deep internal experiential living part of the spiritual practice. I want to share with you the story of the first time that I received True Light and my resolve in response to it, and also the first time that I saw my divine soul and the realizations that followed. The first time I received True Light, I experienced profound connection with the infinite. It was an experience of coming alive to the depths of truth, love, and harmony within. It was powerful. I felt as though I had been laboring up the mountain of my daily life, and then suddenly I was given a drink of water from a mountain spring so pure, so thirst-quenching, and deeply refreshing. The energy and experience were so powerful, it was like being fully immersed in water I was simultaneously drinking. On the physical plane, while I did not ask for water, it was suddenly given. On the spiritual plane, it felt as if all my life's efforts and those of my forebears had been undertaken ultimately to reach that mountain spring. After receiving light for the first time, never again would I pursue the practice merely as a way to heal my allergies. I knew right away that there was a greater purpose. The conscious reconnection with the divine was so blissful that my first and most powerful impulse was to pursue this reconnection. My next impulse was to learn how to offer the same gift to others. That would come soon enough, but first I would devote my efforts to receiving True Light as a way to begin to unite my life on spiritual and physical planes. Early in my spiritual practice, while receiving True Light from a Sukyo Mahikari staff member, I had an experience that changed my life. I was receiving True Light to my main soul, directed toward the center of my forehead, when I was allowed to see in the deepest depths of myself the round, radiant, still golden circle of energy, which I recognized instantly as my divine soul. The awe, humility, and serenity I felt for being allowed to receive this direct experience of true self is beyond my capacity to put into words. For in that precious moment, I realized that this serene, pure, luminous human core is universal, equal across people of all external differences of circumstance, history, and qualities. It can be seen and felt through direct experience by an ordinary human being like me, living an ordinary life within the ordinary environment of family and professional life. The self-awareness that accompanied the gift of seeing my divine soul left an indelible mark on my consciousness. And I became fully and completely aware that my essence or true self is divine energy, connected with God and all existence. With these words from True Light, I invite you to listen to my contributing author, Roger Beck, who I believe will share his experiences on Yoko farming.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you here this morning. I would like to begin with a definition of Yoko farming and then recount a couple of experiences I have had that explain to some degree the importance of Yoko farming. So first, the definition. Yoko farming is the application of true light and universal principles in combination with organic farming. What we are doing when we practice Yoko farming is we are in service to God, to nature, to human beings, and to all living things on the farm. I would like now to explain the first experience I had that I think sheds some light on the nature of food. I was at a cafeteria in Japan at the Yoko Health Clinic, and I went through the cafeteria line and obtained a plate full of food and enjoyed it. It was very tasty. And my practice as a person has been over many years to always have seconds, sometimes thirds. So I went back into the line and I got some more food and sat down and I began to eat, and I realized that I was full. I just wasn't hungry anymore. So this was completely outside my normal experience. And it suggested that there was something about this food that was not typical. So then you might ask, well, what is going on here? Why is Yoko farm food different from other food? So my second experience shed some light on that aspect. I was in training for a few days at the Nayukawa Yoko farm near Takayama, Japan. And we were there in a group of perhaps 15, 20 people, something like that. And our instructor assembled us at the end of a hoop house, a greenhouse, and asked for a volunteer. So a young man from Australia stepped forward and faced the group, and the instructor turned around and harvested a cucumber from the hoop house. And he asked the volunteer from Australia to put this cucumber in his right hand and to extend his left arm parallel to the ground. So the volunteer did that, and the instructor pushed on his left arm and could not push it down. So then he asked the volunteer to put the cucumber on the ground and to step on it, not to squash it, but to step on it. And he did that and extended his arm again, and the instructor easily pushed it down. So then he said, the instructor said, please apologize to the cucumber. So the volunteer apologized for having stepped on the cucumber and extended his arm, and the instructor couldn't push it down. So what this suggests to me is that there is a spiritual dimension to vegetables, and that spiritual dimension can be raised or lowered depending on how the vegetables are treated. So that, coming back to the first example, where I was in the cafeteria, I infer that I was filled so quickly that because there was a high spiritual dimension to the food I was eating. And this these two examples then suggest that the nature of the food we eat is very important. That it will be more life-sustaining, more nourishing, if it has a higher spiritual vibration. So that, I think, to all of us who, of course, consume food regularly, means that we need to be pretty cautious about the food that we eat. And if we are able to obtain Yoko farm food, then that's the best we can do. If we are not able to obtain Yoko farm food, we may wish to apologize to the food for any harsh treatment that it has received that might have lowered its spiritual level. And as in the example of the volunteer at the end of the hoop house, apology may lift the spiritual vibrations of the food. So that completes my portrayal of what Yoko farming is and why Yoko farming food is so important today. Thank you very much.
So Leena, back to you. Leena, I think you're on
Yes.
mute. There you go.
Yes, thank you. I have a few words from my son, Rudy. And he says, these words in True Light really resonated with me. Brother Wayne described interspirituality as the foundation that can prepare the way for an enlightened culture and a continuing community among religions that is substantial, vital, and creative. This is precisely the larger vision I'm alluding to. As more people engage in authentic and meaningful practice, we will experience a cultural shift towards altruism, unity, and peace. So Rudy says, this message reminds me that collaboration and the recognition of interdependence is essential to the societies we build into the future. I'm a person focused on bringing digital technologies to clean energy, mobility, diversity, equity, inclusion, and payment systems. I look to this guidance and to my daily practice of true light and reading as a sort of North Star. Our generation often goes to Calm or Headspace apps on our phones, often forgetting that authentic, regular spiritual practice can help us find the altruism, unity, and peace that we are really looking for. Thank you.
Okay, so great. Thank you so much, Leena and Roger, and bringing us those words from Rudy Roy. Now, Rudy is actually an energy entrepreneur, and as Leena said, her eldest son, and he has just, been happy to share with us about Sukyo's holistic, sustainable principles and activities, which Leena just shared. And we're so pleased that we actually have nearly 20 commentators in the book True Light who elaborate on their experiences and on the message of the book. And so many of them are with us here today. So the first one that I want to go to next is Ruchika Mandian, who's also joining us from India. And Ruchika is a screenwriter, and she's going to be commenting on True Light from the point of view of media, and especially motion pictures, as well as on the spiritual elevation and importance of the family. So Ruchika, I think you're on mute. So
Hi. Hi, everybody. Thank you again for having me, Leena. And it's just such a pleasure to be with such a lovely community of practitioners and professionals. As an actress, writer, and producer, it has always been my intention to entertain, inspire, and change the world. In doing so, I have always gravitated to spiritually uplifting myself through music or dance or any other art forms that have inspired me. Being introduced to True Light has helped me elevate spiritually, which has had a positive effect in many areas of my life. Spirituality comes in all shapes and forms. I was fortunate to be introduced to True Light in Los Angeles, California by Leena Brown's son, Rudy Roy. And both Rudy and Leena and their colleagues guided me to receiving True Light in 2001. Although very skeptical at first, I was guided to a series of various forms of spiritual healing after receiving light 10 times. I was introduced to Buddhist meditation, harmonizing solfeggio frequencies, and an elevated, more complex yoga practice than I was doing at the time. The light helped me explore better ways of connecting to my art and to source energy. The more light I received, the more I saw my world change into a healthier one, where I ate better food, interacted with less toxic people, and had elevated experiences of higher frequency with my career. In 2012, my immediate family had the opportunity to visit their ancestral land in Sindh, which is in Pakistan, in today's Pakistan. My grandparents had fled this territory in 1947 when India split from British rule. Although my parents and myself were born in Mumbai, very few people have had the opportunity to visit Sindh, our ancestral land. I truly believe receiving true light gave us the opportunity to connect with our ancestral land in a very tangible, specific way by being blessed to actually visit in 2012. In 2015, after having received light once a week for over 3 years continuously, I started practicing the art of giving true light. This energized my world even more. I noticed that many relatives on both my paternal and maternal sides of the family started seeking a consciousness of healing by praying and discovering more ways of connecting to source through chanting. Higher arrangements of harmony started to permeate family relationships, health, and career on both sides of the family. Early in my career, after graduating from CalArts in Los Angeles, I set out with the intention to be a causal actress, producer, and writer. The scripts I was hired to write explored immigration and romantic relationships across societal times. While continuing my career in entertainment as a life practitioner, I've actually noticed a fundamental shift towards more of the spiritual entering my work. In 2013, I adapted acclaimed Indo-American novelist Leena Banerjee Brown PhD's novel, One Amazing Thing, for the big screen. The central character is of Indian origin and named Uma, which means tranquility. Her role is a harmonizing one in the novel, where she attempts to bring a group of diverse strangers together during an earthquake in an Indian consulate in San Francisco. Since then, more elements of the sacred continue to be a big part of my work, which I hope will help inspire humanity. As you elevate spiritually, you help all other living flora, fauna, and humanity achieve a higher frequency. It's contagious and wonderful. Namaste.
So thank you so much, Ruchika. And so we're going to go now to Sharon Hamilton Getz, who's with us here in the United States. And Sharon is the chairman emeritus of the Committee on Spirituality, Values, and Global Concerns at the United Nations. And she's also a very noted photographer. And she's going to comment on true light from the point of view of the United Nations community. So Sharon, over to you.
Thank you, Kurt. I want to thank, and I'd like to thank the Light on Light Press and the arrangement to have this discussion during the Unity Week the Unity World Week. It seems so appropriate. And I want to thank you, Kurt, for all your wonderful work. And Leena Banerjee Brown, I am so happy to meet you. I really look forward to seeing you in person, but this is the best next thing. And I want to thank you for this invitation to meet with all of you to discuss about true light. So let me give you a little history and background about me. I was introduced to the practice of giving light in the 70s, and it became something that was my first priority. I came back to New York, which is my home, and it was in my apartment that it was like acting as a pioneer for it to happen. And so my mother had introduced me, and the first thing I wanted to do was go back to New York and to give light here. And so people received and also were able to give light. And so it started to grow, and then after that it moved on. And at that time I became an interfaith ordained minister, and I found that instantly I was connected to so many traditions. I think it had a lot to do with my upbringing and the school I went to. I was exposed to many international people. And so I guess it was just a continuation of that. But I found that I met with many different traditions and different people from different cultures instantly. And of course, with my love for the UN and working there, and every day I would have this opportunity to meet so many new people. And so then I became an ambassador of peace, and I traveled to many countries. And I was very fortunate to be able to visit many of the centers in different countries, in Paris and in South America, in Brazil, and Sao Paulo, and of course in Japan. And so this light, it actually, I found that it really inspired me, because almost everything that I was thinking, and I come from a very creative musical and theatrical artistic family, but I really found that everything that I was doing or that came to me was because of the light, because it just seemed like it was divinely inspired. And the more that happened, the more inspired I became to do more. And so one thing just led to another. So the whole idea was, where I gave the light, it was really helping those that I met from different paths to return to the Creator and the common origin. One of the most valuable gifts is to receive the light, but also to give. And at my work at the UN, that does such good work for peace and justice, so many opportunities are there to meet people from many different paths, and also to have the opportunity to embody the true light. And I trust the relationships with all whom I met and continue to meet, guiding them to the source, acting as a bridge where we all can get connected. So that's why interfacing with diplomats, religious leaders, and government workers, if there's an opening, I find that I can have the opportunity to give light. I do. And I guide these people that we can all share and get connected. and understand we're all related and come from the same origin. So I'd like to read 2 paragraphs from the book on page 108 from the chapter on, it's on the intergenerational family. When worldly material knowledge and pursuit are built upon a living spiritual foundation, divine wisdom guides our conscious, discerning engagement and contributions in the world, and are in tune with God. This is vital for naturally flourishing in our world today and in the future, and for the evolution of our personal lives, fields, and systems in society. The experience of direct connection with God reconnects us with our first and eternal relationship, that of our soul with God. Daily spiritual practice in a context and culture of spiritual practice with our families creates a true home for the first relationship. We naturally harmonize with the divine will and principles and recognize our soul's infinite path of development. Our minds, bodies, and material lives gain a foundation and framework on which to grow spiritually toward a peaceful spiritual future for the human family and the earth. I would like to extend divine peace and an invitation to visit the New York Center for Spiritual Development. It's at 124 East 31st Street, and allow me to offer you and your family, should you be in New York, divine light. And I want to thank you for this time together, and thank you, Kurt, and thank you, Leena, for writing this wonderful book. And please accept all blessings coming from this discussion today and from the true light. And I hope to meet you again soon. Bye for now.
Oh, Sharon, thank you so much. And thanks for being so gracious and offering so much. So we're going to go now to Ranjan Nehru in India. And Ranjan is a lawyer and an artist and a poet. And he's going to comment on true light from the perspectives of intergenerational true light practice in daily life and family and community, and also in work and in play. So over to Ranjan.
Good morning to all of you. Since I'm going to talk about the intergenerational family, I would like to draw your attention to my background, which might be a little strange. Pardon me for sharing with you a little part of my ancient time, which has not been so, it's been rather painful. So I was born of parents who lived in a large joint family in the older order of Kashmir. That is the home of our ancestors. Why? In company of my be that situation. My father lost his mother at the age of 3. His father was remarried. I saw my parents in a helpless position, suffering discrimination at the hands of my step-grandmother and other extreme situations. This deeply impacted my early upbringing. In retrospect, these things churn me inside out. I'm saying this in the context of the original intergenerational family and the distinct milieu I found myself in. In retrospect, many things, it is nevertheless proved to be very enriching to me. Go through harshness and then through my adolescence was most influenced by my father. Though a broadcasting engineer, he was enthused by science, philosophy, religion, ritual, history, and heritage, especially that of Kashmir. He was one who nudged me to read the book written by Dr. Had it not been for him, I would not have cared to read and would not even have become a practitioner of light. I saw myself as a part of a minuscule community living at the edge of a society of which more than 95% were vigorously following Islam, while the minority community to which our family was associated was affected by fears of all kinds, wars, internal strife, religious bigotry, and discrimination. I'm recapitulating all this with the idea of highlighting how all this has shaped my aspiration. My aspiration was to seek a higher purpose of life, to know where we as humans have come from, where we are going from here, to move away from a world ridden with religious and other conflicts, to seek something unifying and transforming, to seek kind of benedict. I moved over to Kashmir after spending about 6 years. My mission Kashmir being over, I made preparations to gradually shift my law practice to Pune. Because this has context to my practice as a lawyer also, and that's why I'm sharing this part of it. Looking in retrospect, in 1986, my father was detected with second stage of bladder cancer. As a result, he had to be periodically taken for chemotherapy. After my initial forays into transcendental meditation, my exposure to Osho, I came across True Light introduced to the world by Mr. Kotama Okada through Sukyo Mahikari, an organization established by him in 1959. I did my primary course in 1994, though I was not aspiring any relief or benefit. In the process, I came to learn about a bit of True Light, the divine plan, the direction, purpose of our lives, universal divine principles. It was a journey from something murky to something cogent, gradually making me a little more stable or rooted. It was as if my spiritual quest had been finally answered. Without noticing it too keenly, by the time I did the primary course of Sukyo Mahikari, my father was declared free of cancer. My work and my career grew, and I was able to successfully set up my law firm in a new city and in a new environment. But life is not all about a jolly ride. It's a progression of waves and encounter in our lives make us strong and tall in the seen and the unseen realms. While this was happening, we could not go to Kashmir for over 7 years. Finally, in the year 1997, with great hesitation and after overcoming fear, we visited the valley after such a long gap. I actively re-engaged myself with Kashmir and my friends there. We would offer spirit realm purification every time we were there. We would organize light sessions among those who agreed to receive. Fortunately, in the year 2000, the regional director of Sukyo Mahikari wanted to visit the valley on a personal visit. I was able to host him there. In the course of that visit, he purified our home and our adjacent hotel property, and also performed spirit realm purification for the valley. By 2003, to restart our old hotel, and by 2010, things started improving before the situation started getting difficult once again. Growing as a practitioner of light and divine principle, my progression in poetry, art, and writing became more intense. The spiritual gifts received through True Light and the absorption of universal divine principles started reflecting in all my works with a clarity that was unusual. The result, as of today, is that I have a whole lot of my creative works waiting to be published, shared, and exhibited. This is, I'm sorry, I might have gone a little more than the time allotted, but I wanted to share this part of it. Thank you very much.
Oh, Ranjan, thank you so much also. And of course, we're having an international conversation here, so we're navigating different levels of internet stability. So everyone's being really good. So Ranjan, thanks so much. So we're going to go now to Dib Mukherjee, who also actually happens to be Leena's uncle. And he's a diplomat, a photographer, and an author. And actually, it's his photograph of the Himalayan peak, Nanda Devi, that's on the cover here of True Light, which was taken by him on a September afternoon. So we're going to hear from Deb in India, and he's going to comment on True Light, particularly from the point of view of governance. So Deb, over to you.
Thank you, Kurt. Friends, after that, those words from Mr. Nehru, I think it's a very, very difficult act to follow. It was amazing, the experience of his life and what he achieved, what he received through Sukyo Mahikari. But first, I'm delighted to be here, to be invited to this meeting and to speak on Sukyo Mahikari and governance to some extent. First, I would like to compliment the author for not only a fascinating introduction to Sukyo Mahikari, but also an account of her own journey and the beautiful family that she has raised. Dr. Johnson has mentioned that Leena is my niece. I have seen her grow from a teenager to a beautiful woman. But what was always distinctive was her inner beauty and calm. We all have met people who seem to light up a room when they enter. Well, the author was always one of them. And it is not surprising that she would have found Sukyo Mahikari a vocation so close to her heart. Personally, I have received light more than once from Leena and David during their visits to Delhi. On the last occasion, almost exactly 2 years ago, I received light in the hospital as I was about to undergo a fairly critical cardiac procedure. It is perhaps because of the light received that within 8 weeks, I felt confident enough to go on a walking tour on the coast of Ireland. I must add, somewhat to the dismay of my cardiac surgeons. Let me add that Leena has in the past considered me worthy of entering the Sukyo Mahikari fold. But frankly, I was not comfortable with the avowal of acceptance of and submission to God as a prerequisite. I noticed that in her preface, the author permits us to substitute the word God with our own personal understanding of the higher power, howsoever defined. To come to governance and Sukyo Mahikari from an Indian perspective, I take it to mean here governance by governance. One may wonder what could be in common between governance and what is essentially a spiritual endeavor, one of self-realization and connectivity to the absolute. But Sukyo Mahikari is also about discipline, about empathy, and not the least, ordering one's life in harmony with nature. One problem we see across the world today is the rise of authoritarian governments, even if in the garb of elected democracies. In today's strife-ridden world, in a world overcome by disease and want, and by conflicts between citizens, I think it would be most desirable if governance reflected these universal principles of Sukyo Mahikari, which have today become so critical to our existence itself. As the Himalayan glaciers melt and deserts encroach on our forests, it becomes critical for governance to ensure that we do not permit so-called development to outpace what nature can bear. And in a land as diverse as India, government's responsibility to promote friendship and empathy between people becomes all the more acute. The principles that underline Sukyo Mahikari are also principles that need to be embraced by governments. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Deb. That was really so wonderful for you to share, particularly all of those perspectives. So we're going to go now over to Shekhar Dutt, who's again joining us from India. And he happens to actually be a cousin of Leena and a public servant, and actually the one who introduced Leena and our True Light book process to the office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama in India. And so we were so pleased to get that forward from His Holiness. So Deb is going to comment on True Light, again, from the point of view of governance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. And I'm so pleased to be here. And thank you very much, Leena, for inviting me and also giving me this opportunity to meet everyone. And my wife, who's Leena's sister, is here with me. Her name is Shushmita. And we are so happy that this is a beautiful introduction to this whole world of the light, true light. And in fact, when I heard the book is going to be named as True Light, and the publishers are Light on Light, what came to my mind was that they're throwing light on light. So, and it's so correct that it immediately brought my my attention to one of the shlokas of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which our ancestors had written in the 7th or 8th century BCE. So that is 7 or 8 centuries before Christ. And it says, the first line of the stanza is Asato ma sadgamayo, meaning lead me from untruth to truth. The second line says Tamaso ma jyotirgamayo, means that lead me from darkness to light. And the third one is Tamaso ma jyotirgamayo, and then Mrityur ma amritagamayo. That means lead me from death to immortality. Now each has its own meaning. Asato ma sadgamo is very simple, that yes, from truth, from falsehood or any kind of untruth, lead me on to the realm of truth. Truth is God, and truth is the essence of all that man's soul requires. The next one, Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, has another meaning. The darkness is lack of knowledge, lack of information, lack of the worthiness to be called a good citizen. Lead from that to light, or the Jyotirgamaya is basically from darkness to light, or from ignorance to knowledge. And knowledge is another virtue which the human being requires to have. And knowledge does not mean that one should become a great literature or anything. Knowledge would mean that all that what Mr. Dev Mukherjee has said, that we should be understanding the nature, the entire world of which has been given to us, and we ought to ensure that we give it to our sons or grandsons or grandchildren in a better condition than what we received that. So then the last one is the regarding that we should, it is not necessarily, it is not at all necessary that we should become immortal, but we should do certain things. We should do something that the mankind must remember us. People must remember. People must think that we have been useful to society. We have been useful to the mankind. And so our ancestors said, this, and I think that it is very much in line with the objective of true light, which Leena has so nicely written. And then the other factor which was very interesting was, she asked me to get Dalai Lama's foreword. And Dalai Lama had been in communication, and he had come to our number of times, and we had met elsewhere also. And what he wanted in one of the visits or one of the discussions, that he told me that there is a person called Nagarjuna who was a philosopher in the first or second century BCE or thereabouts, 4 centuries after the Buddha. And Nagarjuna amplified on certain Buddha's teaching or Buddha's thoughts of Shunyata and Mulya Mahakarika. Basically, the fundamental verses of the middle way. Middle way is what he was, in the doctrine of Shunyata. So Nagarjuna wanted to reflect on all his thoughts, and he went and in a cave where there were a lot of wild animals and many other things, but he went and stayed for more than 15 days and came very convinced that his thoughts and his philosophy was right. Dalai Lama now, after so many, millenniums, after 2 millenniums, wanted to go into that cave, and he wanted my help. So I asked the police, and they said, sir, it is not a very advisable thing because there are bears, the black bear, which is there. And although they are not, they don't eat human being, but they are protective toward their own children. So if there's a human being also in the cave, then maybe they don't like. So, so we told that the police were very much, Dalai Lama is a very, very important person in India. So they didn't want him to get hurt. Dalai Lama came back again and he says, look, I have understood, but I'll go quietly and I won't offend the bears. So anyway, so what we did was we had the police chaps do their work in the background, and they did not hurt the bears, but they did not allow the bears to come. But the Dalai Lama went there, Now, why was he insisting on going inside the cave and meditating like this? He wanted to put himself in the psychology, in the shoes, in the skin of Nagarjuna and understand. And that is the most important sort of lesson in governance. Best of the governance is that whatever you are doing, whichever chair you are sitting, you think whether your action is going to be good to the persons that it is intended to. In fact, Swami Vivekananda, one of again another person who's been of great influence to Indian society, he says that you have to grow from inside out. None can teach you. None can make you more spiritual. There is no other teacher better than your own soul. And therefore, you discover your own soul, you discover your ability, you discover and you have uh, knowledge that you shall be able to do your best, and that best is going to be helpful to the society, to the people. In fact, another person who would be remembered, and I would say that, from the times that we've been reading, persons like Buddha, Christ, and Vivekananda or Gandhi have made a lot of difference to the society or to the people. So Gandhi is another person who said exactly what should be the role of the people who are in governance. And he says, Gandhi says, I will give you a talisman. Whenever you are in doubt or when the self becomes too much with you, apply the following test. Recall the face of the poorest and the weakest man whom you may have seen and ask yourself if the step you contemplate is going to be of any use to him. Will he gain anything by it? Will it restore him to a control over his own life and destiny? In other words, will it lead to Swaraj for the hungry and spiritually starving millions? Then you will find your doubt and yourself melting away. And I think it's a talisman. Talisman is in a Indian context. It's called tabiz. Muslims and Hindus both wear that. And wherever you have a doubt, you put your hand on the tabiz and the talisman, and you feel comforted. Then Gandhiji said, "This is the talisman," and I, in fact, keep this, and it's been signed by Mahatma Gandhi, and keep it on my front, in fact, over the computer. Now, why I'm saying this, that what I saw Dalai Lama doing was exactly this. He was getting into the skin of Nagarjuna, feeling and then convincing himself that what Nagarjuna said or what Nagarjuna's philosophy, that there is a basis in that. And so I, having been a soldier also, I have fought a war, and to become able to win the war, the best method is to actually understand what would the enemy be thinking. Similarly, in the whole art of management, the best way to understand whether you are providing good management ability or to the corporate wherever you are working is, again, what is the customer going to think, and are you going to satisfy the customer's need? Good maintenance, good product, good after-sale service, and all those things. Now, basically, governance is the same thing. So you have to get into the skin of the person that you are intending, and similar, intending to help or intending to be like, and understand the mental and the psychological say reasons why that person would like this this product or not. And I say that having read this book, there are a lot of things which I find are, you know, in the realm that we are we require ourselves to come up a notch, 2 notches, more notches, and see that we are able to be of use to the society, to the nature, to the earth, to the sustainability of the entire economy and ecosystem. And, you know, all this would make our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, you know, in my talks, many places I talk about 5,000 years of our culture, but we hesitate to suggest 500 years hence, because we really don't know our generation, what are we doing with the earth, and are we taking in such a large amount that we, even if we want to give, we cannot give. And we are leaving the earth completely shattered after one generation. And what happens after 50 years? What happens after 500 years? So I am not exactly pessimistic, but I am quite certain that philosophies like what has been professed and what has been put forward in the true light will be such that it will provide hope, it will provide certain amount of confidence that yes, we have a way to do it, and let's do it. Thank you very much, and wish you all the very best, everyone. It was a pleasure being here with you and listening, all of you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Shekhar, thanks so much. I mean, what a rich landscape you laid out between all of those historical personages. And of course, when you speak of the Dalai Lama, it's up close and personal for me, having my chat with him 2 Novembers ago in Dharmashala. And we're always so used to seeing him on television, but he's actually so easy to be with as a person, as you know, and such a dynamic between he and his translator, who's such a sweetheart. And when you're in a threesome with him and yourself and the translator, and you're able to really have a rich and very relaxed conversation. So, you know, thanks for that. So we're going to go over now to Jaya Lomahan and Jaya Lakshmi, again in India, and they are both physicians, and they're going to comment on true light from the point of view of medicine and the medical profession. So I think we'll start with Jaya Lomahan, and then we'll move on to Jaya Lakshmi. So Jaya L, go ahead.
Namaste. This is Dr. Jaya Mohan. Professionally, I am a mother and child specialist serving the public sector. Throughout my medical education, I was always haunted by the statement made by a philosopher and scientist, the great Plato, in one of our textbooks that the greatest limitation of modern medicine is that we are separating the soul from the body and treating the body alone. In our medical education curriculum, not a single statement session is mentioned about the existence of this realm of life force or spirit within the physical body. The curiosity to understand the existence of the realm, this realm guided me to learn yoga from Sri Vedadari Maharshi, whose teachings gave me some knowledge about life force particles or spirit within the physical body. Immediately after this, in January 1992, I was blessed with the golden opportunity to undergo the primary training course in Sukyo Mahikari, which very lucidly explains the existence of this unseen spiritual realm. The most important message which inspired me to take a U-turn in my medical profession as well as in my personal life is the wonderful Sukyo teaching. Spirit first, mind follows, body belongs. I was also blessed with many opportunities to experience the presence of the spiritual realm. Just like my experiences are written in the book by Dr. Leena, even giving light, brought back the life of stillborn babies, all those wonderful experiences really awakened me and enabled me to shift my medical practice from material centeredness to spirit centeredness. The awareness that the root cause of all diseases and sufferings are due to the impurities in the spiritual body, and for enjoying health, harmony, and prosperity, or Ken Mafu, according to Mahikari, we have to erase our impurities from the spiritual realm with true light, Mahikari. This motivated me to develop a holistic health center based on whole person medicine, combining spirit, mind, and body at one of the remote hilly districts in Idiki, that is in South India, Kerala, South India. I am able to promote spirit-centered medicine and propagate Sume Godo for uniting the righteous spiritual pathways under one umbrella. I also take this opportunity to express my deep gratitude and love to Dr. Leena Banerjee Brown and Dr. Roger L. Beck for including my experiences in the noble book titled True Light, Our Ordinary People in Extraordinary Spiritual Path of Mahikari. That's a wonderful title. This will definitely be an effective tool for spreading the golden teachings of Sukyo Mahikari, especially about the dawning of a new holy civilization for saving mankind and Mother Earth. Thanking you, lots of love and light to all of you. And Dr. Jayalakshmi from New Delhi, she is my colleague also. She will add to our experiences. Thank you once more. Namaste.
Thank you, Jaya.
Now I was the one on mute. Yeah, thank you so much, Jaya. So now we'll go to Jaya Lakshmi. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'm Dr. Jayalakshmi. I retired as a pediatrician and a health administrator. I worked in the government of India. When I was 10 years old, my friends, they staged a small skit on Buddha, where I was only a curtain raiser. This small play made such a strong impact on my mind to the miseries of all human beings from birth to death. As a young child, I could only think the medical profession is the only one which can alleviate all sufferings. So this resulted in my becoming a medical practitioner. But when I was working in a maternity hospital where I was the neonatologist, one day I saw a mother whom I had seen for the last maybe 10 years, and she had come for her 6th baby, delivery of her 6th baby. And in the morning when I was on, and I went to examine the child, and the child was extremely cold. It was extremely cold at that time in Delhi. And the child was wrapped in a lot of clothes. So because as a pediatrician, you have to open the clothes off and examine the child. And I started removing the clothes, which are the wrapped up clothes. I saw the baby was completely naked. And the same mother I have seen from the 1st child till the 6th child. And the way she had, welcomed the 1st baby, and the way she was welcomed the 6th baby, I was really shattered. So on the way home, when I was driving, I was very dejected, and I was thinking, how can I mitigate all the miseries? And my medical profession and medical knowledge cannot mitigate all the miseries of life, because this was not something to do with medicine. This was something beyond that, So I wished at that time, while driving down, I wish I have a van which I can just move around and dispel all the sufferings from this world. And it was like a child. I thought later I thought it's a very childish wish to ask for a van, But you'll be surprised to know after 30 years, I did get my van. I came in contact with Mahikari in 2009 through my dear friend, Dr. Jayalal Mohan. She's here. And through her persistence, because at that time I used to suffer from very severe back pain. She persisted that I should come and receive light 1 month at least every day. So I very obediently, I listened to her. And when I received when I was receiving, going and receiving every day, I saw, the way with which they were so bright, the people who are coming and giving the light, and so concerned and happy people, And at the end of 1 month, I thought I have received a lot of light. Now I must give the light to others, So I took up this practice and I thought maybe there is a possibility that they can explore this pathway to, which is very unfamiliar to me, to see that if I can remove the others' sufferings, like all what I have heard from Mahikari. So I took up the practice of Mahikari in 2009. The numerous experiences I received through my family and others from this practice strongly awakened in me the realization of the existence of other dimensions. There are more dimensions than the physical dimension, which is only, we are only familiar with the physical dimension, and other dimensions are not seen by us. For the first time, I realized there are other dimensions much more powerful. For a person who has been I was a very dogmatic person, and I not needed scientific proof for everything, otherwise I wouldn't accept anything. Many questions baffling my mind. Baffling my mind in spite of being scientifically educated and knowing the working of the body and the mind. All these, they gave the answers, the Mahikari pathway. Once I came to Mahikari and I started doing the practice, I understood many answers came to me. Now I am at complete peace with all the answers, which answers all my puzzles, and with a deep desire to spread the God's light with the precious wand I have received. So I use my wand quite a lot, absolutely. And every time I raise my hand, I just am amazed at that day when I can remember the scene very well, driving down that long road and wishing for a wand. And I am amazed, I have got a wand in my hand. That's a wonderful thing. Amazingly, the other thing, what amazingly I discovered was that all the answers which are coming to me through Mahikari now, they're already there in our ancient scriptures, which I have never read because I was never a religious person or a very spiritual person till I retired. So now when I go back and read those scriptures, all the answers which are there in Mahikari, they are there. So it's everything, it's there existing, but it is for us to open our eyes. Maybe I was not ready. I was not ready to get the answers, though my mind was all the time searching for answers from the age of 10. But I got it at the age of 62. That's quite a lot. So maybe this entry into this pathway was needed for me to get the answers. And I find a practice suited for the present time. This book of Dr. Leena Brown, on a complex subject of spirituality, written in such a simple language. I have read a lot. I've read more than half the book, Leena. Yeah, and it's like is going to give me another wand to express to others what I find it very difficult to answer to other people, So this is going to be my tool now for spreading the message of Sukyo Mahikari. Thank you. Thank you very much. And my gratitude to Dr. Leena, Dr. Roger, for giving us this wonderful book. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Jaya. And yes, I remember my first conversation with people in Sukyo was nearly a 3-hour-long conversation about exactly what you just said, and Sharon said it, and many of you, that the principles that came from Gautama Okada are so in sync with all of the major integral, interfaith, and interspiritual holistic principles that are emerging all around the world now. So it's a part of this emergence at this special time for the planet. So I really appreciate all those comments. So we're going to go now to Kate Sheehan Roach, Dr. Robert Atkinson, and Nomi Naeem from the editorial staff of Light on Light Press, who were intimately involved in bringing this book to the world. And I think Nomi is going to start by reading a passage from True Light, and then Kate and Bob are going to share about some of their experiences and comments about the work that they did on the book. So I think over to Nomi.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to be in the company of all the wonderful people. And I was also raised in Pakistan and Islam, and my parents came from India. So there is a profound connection that I feel with Dr. Leena. So here is what I wrote for the book. It has been a profound blessing for me to read Dr. Banerjee's book, True Light, in which I found continual confirmation of what the Dalai Lama said in the Foreword, that a spiritual journey is essentially devoted to developing our genuine concern for others as we cultivate loving kindness. Similarly, True Light is a beautiful expression of the spiritual awakening and growth of a truth seeker whose own well-being is multiplied manifold as a result of her efforts to help others see the light and heal and flourish. But Dr. Banerjee had to participate passionately in the cultivation of her own blessing. More importantly, the book is not about promoting one path over another. It's about sharing our stories and miracles that we encounter on our way towards the ever-present origin, source, and mystery of our being in this infinite universe. One miracle that I found the most inspiring was when I read Dr. Banerjee's following words, and I quote, "At one meeting, I was sitting with my back to a picture window as I spoke to the group. It was late May, and there was a tulip tree in bloom outside. The group was sitting facing me with a lovely view of the tree through the window. As I shared psychological reflections, I decided to go deeper to share spiritual reflections as well. I could feel the group was very moved to hear what I had to say. There was a warmth in the room and a long silence following my talk. Then someone spoke up and said that the whole time I was speaking, the tulip tree outside shed petals like a rain shower. And when I stopped speaking, the shower of petals stopped as well. We all shared a sense of awe, a sense that we had experienced greatness, something extraordinary intertwined with the ordinary in our everyday lives. No more words were needed." End quote. This reminded me of the most mystical words of one of my favorite philosophers, Wittgenstein: "Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must remain silent." In essence, the book is a profound confirmation of the silently and eternally present, the true, the good, and the beautiful in self, culture, and nature. Thank you so much for sharing your blessings with us. Thank you.
Nomi, thank you. And so to go now to Kate and Dr. Robert Atkinson, who were both intimately involved in the development of this book and bring it to the public. And I'll just let them decide how they want to share their time, and then we'll just enjoy their comments. So go ahead.
Bob, you're welcome to share first if you'd like. Although you're on mute.
Bob, I think you're on mute. There you go.
You can go ahead if you want. Okay.
Okay, then I will. Thanks. Well, how beautiful to see all of you together. This is like a family reunion of all who have been involved in this beautiful book. And what better place to gather but around World Unity Week. So happy World Unity Week to everyone. And I am especially blessed to have worked so closely with Dr. Leena Banerjee Brown. We spent many, many hours together on Zoom talking about the book and talking through the stories. And what came through to me immediately was the purity of the message from both her and Dr. Roger Beck. I will say without blushing that I just fell in love with both of you through your stories, through your words, and the purity of your intentions. Unless we unite at the deepest level, individually and collectively, cultivating harmony and acceptance and this pure divine love that this book is about. Unity and the fruits of peace will continue to be elusive. Whereas when we unite at the deepest level, cultivating harmony and acceptance and this pure divine love, unity and the fruits of peace will be the natural state of humanity. It'll be freely offered, freely available. That's what came through to me in the many, many hours that Leena and I sat together, and the many, many hours that I sat with these words. Really, every word of this book has been lovingly caressed before placed on the page. And the love is for the reader. The love is for the world. This purpose of World Unity Week and the purpose of True Light are one and the same, is to bless the world with divine love. And so Sukyo Mahikari is a practice that I was introduced to by a respected and beloved colleague prior to meeting Leena Banerjee Brown. But I have to say that even if I had not been introduced previously, I would have been captivated immediately by the way she writes and the way Roger writes, the way they present humbly these concepts that are really beyond words, but it's through humility that they come through so clearly. So in the spirit of that humility, they've invited others into the story to write spotlights, including the editor. How often does the editor get an opportunity to share? That's, I have to say, in my many years as an editor, I've never been invited to write my own words in a book. And so I'll share just a tiny bit of what I was invited to share and as part of the spotlights. I'll just pick up in the second part here where I say that Leena Banerjee Brown's interspiritual approach drew me right into the conversation. Myself, a spiritual practitioner in the contemplative Christian tradition, I recognized echoes of words attributed to Jesus of Nazareth. You are the light of the world. And truly, you will do even greater things than these. Throughout the pages of this powerful, pure into the great wisdom traditions are beginning to converge in an evolutionary U-turn we've been praying for and working toward. This book reads like a benediction to me, as the author graciously shines God's light as a blessing upon us all. Thank you so much. Leena.
Okay, then thank you. And I hope the little disruption there again from internet didn't disturb your message too much. So let's go now to Bob.
Thank you, Kurt. And it's wonderful to be here with all of you. It's a real pleasure for me to be part of Light on Light Press because it's so focused on bringing out books that contribute to the emerging interspiritual paradigm. And it's really refreshing and invigorating to have been able to contribute to True Light, because it focuses on a spiritual practice so relevant to the advancement of humanity. It seems fairly rare that we get such an in-depth personal glimpse into a spiritual practice through so many remarkable stories of different perspectives, such as we've just heard. True Light shows that this spiritual practice is not just for oneself, but is meant to be given freely to others for the benefit of all. It is evident from True Light that the great wisdom traditions share a deeper unity through the experience of the luminous, which actually transforms lives and therefore the world. This divine light envelops all things. It is the expression of the Creator's unconditional love for all of creation. But the things of the world can cause us to forget this reality. The spiritual practice of the art of True Light reminds us of this and connects us with the infinite. This is what we all have in common as one humanity and gives us hope for the future. True light is about this universal energy that permeates the entire creation and is available to all. It spotlights a personal spiritual practice that has tremendous implications for both humanity's evolving consciousness and the spiritual development of each individual. So the spiritual journey, so beautifully expressed in True Light, is the human journey, an important reminder of who we are and what we're made for. Thank you so much, Leena, for bringing this book into the world.
Oh, thank you, Bob, and thank you, Kate, and everybody. Thank you for your patience with some occasional internet disruptions. So we're going to be moving here to close. And I just wanted to say, you know, as I've sat here and looking at all of your faces and realizing that we're really talking across 2 or 3 continents, I realized, oh my gosh, if we could actually be together in real time, we'd probably end up spending the whole day. We get to know each other personally. We could have some long, long chats, probably share a couple meals, and we would really have a feel for this international emergence that's going on around universal principles and the universal values and vision that's downloading everywhere across the planet through all the traditions and making so much sense of the pioneers like Gautama Okada and Thomas Keating and Wayne Teasdale and the Dalai Lama and Ken Wilber, and go on through the whole list of all the people who've been understanding the importance of this time. And actually Ken Wilber, you know, the great integral philosopher, just said in the recording we did yesterday for UN Yoga Day, this is an exciting time to be alive because we're in this transition where we can go global with a cosmopolitan, holistic, and integral worldview. And certainly that's been the dream of all the traditions for all time. So we're so pleased and winding up here, again, thanking His Holiness the Dalai Lama for his foreword, which was such a blessing for us. And this book is doing very, very well. There are already a number of magazine articles and other venues about the book True Light. And actually, you're going to be hearing this broadcast originally on June 23rd as a part of the World Unity Week. And further, on June 25th at 8 p.m. from Light on Light Press's Facebook page, we're also going to be broadcasting a 1/2-hour special on the vision of Light on Light with all of its directors, editors, and authors to date. So Light on Light is really excited about continuing its commitment to books across its 4 emphasized genres, which are interspirituality, the global paradigm shift, new movements in the world religions like Sukyo Mahikari, and books on spiritual practice and inspired lifestyle. So it's an exciting time for all of us. And please also note that Leena is hosting some online programs with Lisa, continuing education courses for licensed psychologists and mental health professionals. And those are at Elevate UCE, which you can find at the website elevateuce.com. So to close now, I want to go over to Leena now for just a final closing word. And I think she's going to begin that by quoting from His Holiness the Dalai Lama's foreword to True Light. So over to Leena.
Thank you, Kurt. Yeah, indeed, I would like to read the last line in His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama's foreword for True Light, which he says, I hope that this book will be an inspiration to the many who make their way along their spiritual paths. I truly hope so. And I truly hope with all of us that the important work of elevating our consciousness, the spiritual vibration of our inner core, is something that many of us are inspired to seriously take up and take to heart, especially the coming generations, for the sake of all of us. Thank you so much for being present. Thank you for your wisdom. It's really been an honor to share this time with all of you. And thank you for reading the book and reading from the book, being together today on this journey. Thank you.
Oh, great. So thanks to everyone. Thanks for being here as audience and participants as a part of this special program on the book True Light, Ordinary People on the Extraordinary Path of Sukyo Mahikari. You can find out much more about the book at all of your online booksellers, at lightonlight.us and at sacredstoriespublishing.com. So keep telling your friends and colleagues about the book, and we hope that it will serve the many, many people worldwide who are already adepts or members of the Sukyo Mahikari community. So our love and best to all of you.